2016 BMW GS Safari Enduro returned with yet another challenging and exciting route, this time taking riders from Streaky Bay in South Australia, north to Coober Pedy, west to Maree, down south and eventually all the way to Broken Hill.
How good's this?
This was no asphalt and cafes ride.
Go wrong. If everything goes right, that's not an adventure.
We don't want things to go too wrong.
No, a little bit wrong.
And while a solo trip can be fun, having a support vehicle allowed for more spirited riding as we were free from the weight and bulk of carrying our own luggage.
Begin.
Streaky Bay is a small town on the edge of the Great Australian Bight. It's a popular holiday destination with South Australians and a fishing hotspot.
Begin.
Ahead of the 2016 BMW GS Safari Enduro, a number of riders took up the opportunity to participate in 2 days of training in the sand dunes near Streaky Bay. For those new to sand riding, it was an eye-opening and highly valuable experience. For seasoned riders, it was an opportunity to sharpen up their skills with the BMW rider training crew. In this environment, there was no shame in dropping the bike, as each run over the sand dune produced a better result. As the sessions went on, all gained a greater appreciation of the skills required and the challenges ahead. On Sunday afternoon, riders registered and then got ready for the welcome function and riders briefing. Day one saw the riders wake up to wet roads and uncertain looking skies. With a mixed forecast and a long 600+ kilometre day ahead, many were keen to get on the road as soon as possible. Despite the weather conditions, the sun popped up over the horizon and made for a beautiful start to an absolutely epic ride. An opening stretch of bitumen allowed the participants to settle into their bike and mentally prepare for the day ahead. But before they became too settled, it was off the bitumen and onto the dirt, dust, sand and even mud. The first dirt section was slick from a brief rainstorm, and the riders were given an early wake-up call. Then a few kilometres down the road, the mud turned to sand, which has its own challenges. We arrived in downtown Kingunya for fuel and a lunch pack that the pub had arranged. When you're on a trip like this, there's a common thought that you should always fill up at every opportunity. At Kingunya, everyone filled up no matter what bike you were on. It was only day one, but we were already in a remote part of outback Australia. Every lunch break was not only a chance to refuel and refresh, but also catch up with friends new and old to replay the morning's ride with varying degrees of truth and omission.
First testy part was the muddy bit. I sort of got through that and thought, oh, that'll be okay. But then the sand hit me because I've never ridden sand before, so it was like just complete luck, I think. And then I missed a few caution markers back there, and that was another sheer luck thing that happened.
After lunch, the road settled into classic outback South Australia. This part of South Australia was often used as a landing area for the rockets being fired from the nearby Woomera launching site. Indeed, the authorities at the time were so concerned about the safety of the people in the area that they built bomb shelter style protection at each station. We were told the station hands appreciated the bunker as it gave them an elevated position to watch the rockets fly overhead. From seemingly out of nowhere, a 1 kilometre stretch of bitumen led us to the abandoned Woomera rocket tracking station. The great dream of an Australian rocket industry, and here it is.
What's left?
Here's what's left. Every bit as eerie as it was interesting, once again it was time to get back on the road towards Coober Pedy. Arriving at Coober Pedy, there was a real buzz. The first day really delivered with the remote and sometimes challenging route.
Today, here we are at Mud Hut Hotel. We've just finished day one. A lot of sand, bit of a surprise. We were promised no dust today, but I think we all had a fair share of dust. But most of us made it back safely today and just doing a bit of bike maintenance, so all good. Fantastic.
At the end of day one, I think we've all got in safe and sound and no injuries for me to sort out, which has been excellent. Good day, lovely weather, bit of dust, bit of mud, rain, we had everything.
Hi, I'm Bob. It's a long way from Malaysia to Coober Pedy, but finally made it. Awesome day, epic ride.
Really?
It was a long day. Well, I think it's the longest day for the trip, but yeah, it's just a bit of a warm-up for what's going to come.
Now, did you ride to the event?
Yes, yeah.
So you were already pretty much in the groove. This was just an extension, wasn't it?
Well, I went all on bitumen. But,
right, so how was that first section of dirt this morning?
Oh, no, it was okay. It was a bit slimy in places.
So did it wake you up better than caffeine?
Oh, God, yeah. Because caffeine was a lack of out there, that's for sure.
How do you rate it?
Yeah, great. I reckon it'll be 9 out of 10.
Right, now from your point of view, from the riding point of view it was amazing, but from your point of view, how are you feeling about the event so far?
Really happy with it. It's going really smoothly. Everyone's in. Bikes are all going well as usual. Looking forward to tomorrow.
Now, that was a pretty long day. Are the days long and tough as that, or is that about as...
They vary in difficulty, and they vary. Today was a long day, with a few tricky sections just thrown in to keep people awake. Tomorrow is a shorter day, but will take just as long to cover.
Day 2, and no matter what your plans for the day were, an early start was in order. Some riders headed out early as they wanted to get to Lake Eyre in the afternoon, while others started with a quick trip down an old opal mine in Coober Pedy. They were shorter in the early part of the 20th century, weren't they, Steve?
Well, certainly that, or they had really bad backs.
Honey, I need another bookshelf. No worries, I'll bring the pig. Heading west from Coober Pedy gave the riders their first true outback views, flat and barren for as far as the eye could see. Next stop, the iconic William Creek Hotel for lunch, and for some, a special surprise guest. And while the conditions on the Unadilla track can be highly variable, we caught it at its absolute best. Less than a week later, it was at its worst. The signage along the Unadilla track is your only guide to the conditions ahead. Fortunately for us, it was green all the way. And while the track was at its best, so too was the countryside, green as far as the eye could see after recent rains. Steve Brogy from BMW's on-track rider training partners, the California Superbike School, was on his first GS Safari Enduro. Indeed, it was his first off-road trip ever. While a motorcycle is inherently a solo activity, the GS Safari Enduro is best enjoyed with a few mates alongside. The shared experiences and support of riding with a good friend makes a great event even better.
Well, here we are in the middle of, well, nowhere. and what better could you get? Brilliant day, cup of coffee and a sandwich. Fantastic.
The William Creek pub is a must-stop, not just for the obvious fuel and food supplies, but for its ceiling, walls and characters on both sides of the bar. Word got around that famous Australian adventurer Dick Smith had just arrived. Dick had just flown in for lunch on his way to Alice Springs.
We're on day 2 of the BMW Safari and we've just pulled into William Creek, and Dick Smith's in town. He's just flown in on his way to Alice and Birdsville and all over the place. And he told me a little story about bumping into someone.
Charlie Borman, yeah. I was driving around the world in a big F550 crew cab, and after driving across America, across Europe, across Russia, then across Japan, which took 7 hours, then we brought the vehicle down, shipped it to Perth, and when we got to Ayers Rock, there's Charlie Borman standing looking at my map on the side of the vehicle. And I said, wow, you motivated me when you drove around the world in your BMWs, rode around the world on the long way round, and so we had breakfast together, and we've been friends ever since.
What a great story. So seeing the long way round inspired you to do a lap in your vehicle?
Absolutely. No, seeing him go across Russia, I'd been on the Trans-Siberian train, and when I did the original solo flight around the world in a helicopter, I couldn't even land in Russia. The Cold War existed. I had to land on a ship to refuel between Japan and Alaska. And then this time we got our vehicle through the border between Finland and Russia, and it took about 2 hours to do the paperwork, and then we started driving. We suddenly realised no restrictions, we can go anywhere. So it was like driving across America or Australia. Russia's now completely opened up, and if you want to take your BMWs to an exciting place, drive across Russia and Siberia, in summer preferably. It's fantastic.
The Lake Ayr South lookout gave the riders their first glance of this Australian icon. And by glance we mean view of the salt pans, as the water was a long way from the shores of this vast lake. While water makes its way to the lake in large amounts every few years, a flood or fill only occurs every century or so. Lake Ayr South is some 65 kilometres long and 22 kilometres at its widest. Meanwhile, Lake Ayr North is around 145 kilometres in length and up to 65 kilometres at its widest. And then, as if out of nowhere, this appeared in the desert. We arrived the day after Earth Dream 2016 burnout occurred. Plenty of the lads were disappointed to have missed what looked like a pretty awesome and maybe slightly weird party. But we couldn't afford to hang around too long. It was into Maree for a quick fuel up and maybe a quick ice cream before heading north to Mulrena Station and our camp for the night. After we left the Unadilla track to head north to Mulrena Station, the road conditions just worsened slightly. We were camping at an amazing site on the side of a lagoon about 45 kilometres from Lake Ayr. Riders who arrived early had the option to take the track out to the remote lookout.
And I was checking the South Australian Outback Roads website just to keep an eye on things, because it doesn't take much rain. You can see the remnants of the water on the road. that makes we would have been really up the creek if...
Come on, give us some words of wisdom. You got it in focus.
So he's probably not so happy about the conditions anyway. But that chicane just coming into town.
I saw it and I thought, oh, that'd be a great thing to do. Yeah. And I said, hey Dad, I want to do this. And you said, yeah, all right, I'll give it a go. Well, because I'm just a sucker, I just say, hey, you want to do this? Yeah, I'll do that. You bought the BMW first. Yeah, but I bought it to ride on bitumen. Oh, okay. Well, we're here now, so you know, we're well and truly converted. Well, I'm learning lots, so that's fantastic. I'm really, really pleased. Yeah, cheers. Cheers.
Tonight's caterers, the owners and staff of Marina Station, really put on an amazing spread, the perfect way to cap off a great day.
I might just people.
Yeah, spaghetti right at the bottom.
How good is this food? In the middle of nowhere. Who made this? You? Look at that. You like that.
We discovered that Stu, one of the members of the Safari tyre support team, is actually Olin's equipped in his calf.
Yeah, but just don't take it out. Yeah, just keep going and take it straight in.
There is something very special about outback sunrises, and this one speaks for itself.
Beautiful, beautiful place, beautiful sunrise, great breakfast that these boys put on. Bit cold, lovely cup of coffee.
This is the place where Sir Donald Campbell based himself for the Bluebird speed record attempt. About 44 k's out here at Lake Eyre. Amazing history. There's some memorabilia around here. The guys are having a great breakfast and just having a bit of a read about what's been going on. Such an amazing location.
Some riders who did not make it out to Lake Eyre the previous evening were able to get out early for a look. Despite their terrible and career-ending work as extras, and I use the term advisedly, all agreed that the early start was worth it, being able to see the lake in the early morning sunshine. We were effectively 160 kilometres from the opposite shore, so a short walk was in order. With the day barely underway, it was great to pop into Maree where a packed lunch was waiting for collection, and a splash of fuel as always. Stopping for people in distress is mandatory out here. In this case, it was a flat tyre for this German tourist who was out for a ride on the short strip of asphalt out of Maree. She was more than happy to walk home and refuse my generous offer of assistance. The historic ruins of Farina Township are a worthwhile pit stop. It's hard to imagine such a remote life over 100 years ago. This house was used to accommodate people working on the railway line. While there's a popular view that the Outback gets a little bit same, before we knew it, the flat moonscape that we'd been used to was turning into impressive hills. We were approaching Arkaroola, north of the Flinders Ranges. Riders had a choice here. They could take the more challenging backtrack into the village or the main road. Nearly everyone chose the more challenging route. After a couple of days of flat outback terrain, the track into Arkaroola took plenty of effort and concentration. It was very rocky and steep in places, with some actually pretty nice creek crossings. We picked a hell of a spot, haven't we?
Absolutely epic spot.
Pretty steep? Well, run us through. What's it got?
Oh mate, plenty of rocks.
Plenty of rocks, probably
a lot of ups and downs.
25-degree incline.
Absolutely.
And ruts, rocks, bits of tree.
Everything we've been wanting, mate.
For the first time on this trip, we found ourselves opening and closing gates. It would not be the last. Timing your run to happily arrive to someone else holding the gate for you became a sport. For some, however, the chance to stop and have a rest was a hidden bonus. The technical short steep climbs, rocks and river crossings kept everyone on their toes.
Good combination of rocky stuff, hills, a few unexpected tight corners, everything that makes it fun for a day out.
So ended yet another long and challenging day. We sat outside, watched the sunset with a beer to wash away the day's dirt. It was perfect. The riders' briefing took place by the pool and was followed by a terrific barbecue dinner. And even though we were on a journey where every day was an adventure and every meal a banquet, the dinner in Arkaroola was a standout. Today was a day of choices. We were set to stay another night in Arkaroola, so each participant had to decide if they would ride a large loop, then maybe add a trip to Lake Froome, or just go to Lake Froome, or choose to do nothing and have a rest day.
How good's this? Morning of day 4, we're doing a loop out of Arkaroola village. Yesterday we arrived at Arkaroola after some really great outback plains, and the contrast in these ranges is amazing. We had a great night last night. We've got options of 2 loops this morning and this afternoon. This is the technical loop in the ranges. The second one's a loop out to Lake Frome. Get to check that out and ride a little bit of sand. So we've got gravel and rocks and ridges and riverbeds here and a bit of sand this afternoon, and it's going to really test a lot of the riders.
Always willing to put on a show, Miles showed us what a semi-loaded 1200 GS is capable of, and it was far beyond expectations.
Here we are on the 2016 GS Enduro. We're at Idnina Outstation. Give you a bit of a tour. Oh, geez, can we go through tonight? Oh, wait, next one.
What happened?
Pretty good day, nice sunny, felt a bit loose, things were going well. Thought I'd maybe take a little bit of a deviation, saw some nice clearing ahead, so took the trail and then decided I'd come down this little rutted area just to see how much this little girl could do. Got about halfway, panicked, hit the front brake and went down. And so then I had to have my saviors come and rescue me.
Would you say, in summary, that you're doing it for the fans?
I often do everything for my fans.
Tell us about that river crossing just then.
I thought tide had come right in. I was just waiting to stop and go, uh-oh.
Everything starts off all normal, and about halfway across you go, oh, now I know why they're filming.
Yeah. And thankfully 1200's all talk.
Yeah.
Chunk, 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 we'll get through.
Despite the apparent depth and it being the middle of winter, once again we found the weather gods smiling upon us, as rain further upriver would have made these seemingly benign crossings a genuine challenge. One of the great things about BMW GS Safari Enduro is the unofficial regroups. They are not marked nor mandated, just spots and times when a break is called for. You can jump ahead, join some new friends, or wait for others. It gives the participant freedom to choose how, when and who they ride with. For the vast majority of riders who joined the technical loop, it provided some of the most challenging and satisfying riding of the entire safari.
Been in there, I saw ya. Oh, just a momentary loss of talent, mate.
Here we are at the beautiful Vukathuna Gammon Ranges National Park on our loop day. Great weather, fantastic riding, everyone's having a brilliant time.
How's your morning been?
First time we've been here.
First time I've heard it.
I know one to put a uranium mine here and they stopped it. So
I reckon if you got rid of that hill you'd get a nice view through there. What do you reckon?
How many have you done here, Ken?
First one.
First time you've done this?
Didn't think these bikes could do it. I'm blown away.
Do you think it's one of those things that you sort of, it can be a little intimidating before you actually get on it and then you're like, you know what?
It was intimidating because I heard all the stories about driving up creeks and falling over and water and yeah. So it was a bit intimidating, but that made it more fun.
I'm from South Australia, this is sort of my big backyard, so I've ridden up here before. But yeah, it's just great knowing you got the support behind you. Like if I got a flat tyre, I'm not going to be stuck. It's great. You pull up, stop and have a drink and you can watch 5 or 6 bikes go past you and then catch up and then do it all again.
And you're hanging out with a bunch of blokes, even if you don't know them, you all share the same interests though, basically, don't you?
Yeah. Oh,
and they all want to help too. They all want to give you good advice.
Good advice?
Well,
sure?
their advice hopefully is good.
Advice, yeah.
Advice.
All right, well look, you know what we could do? We could stand around here bantering all afternoon, we could get back on our bikes and head off into that.
Yeah. We started getting into some deep sand out there and thought, oh, turn around, come away.
So it began, the great Lake Frome Sand Shenanigans episode of 2016. There were as many laughs as there were incidents. Riders helping riders while trying not to giggle, and your cameraman joined them in the sand pit. I went and did it, didn't I?
You did it properly.
Well, I mean, I was facing the same direction that I started, at least.
Yeah.
Didn't completely swap ends, but I was too busy watching someone who'd fallen over up ahead and went, look at this silly bugger.
And of course it was left to Miles and a few other seasoned hands to show us how to ride the sand confidently and safely. While many more of us were just happy to get through one way or the other.
Now hang on, that's a perfectly good motorbike. Why would you throw it away?
Yes, I just thought it was a bit tired.
There was nothing wrong with it.
I just wants to have a bit of a nap. I just thought, take it easy. Like, you know, it's a hot day. Just wants to have a bit of a lie down in the sun.
Riding in sand is tricky and polarising. Some riders really struggle, while others love the challenge. It's always a hot topic, and when you finally get your sand legs, it's a great feeling.
He's decided to set himself the challenge of getting the sand done. Go Turtle!
One of the major benefits of doing an off-road training course is the extra riding confidence you gain to handle the tougher sections like this sand. It looks like a few of these guys could benefit from off-road training, me included.
That's not. I gotta say, crash is far more spectacular.
Oh boy! How much fun can we have?
The fun and hilarity of the sand shenanigans over, it was time to head back to Arkaroola for what promised to be another feast. Arkaroola really won over many in the group. Such a variety of terrain, many said it was their best day on a bike ever.
Discovered it was an amazing geological museum and he wanted it protected.
It might have been a bit sad to leave Arkaroola, but more adventure was just around the corner. The feeling in the group now was super positive. We were on the home stretch of riding and we'd seen some tough terrain and we were all better riders for the experience. The route headed into the tight, rocky tracks of the Nanto Arena Indigenous Protected Area, with the town of Lindman as the lunch destination. Our skills may have improved, but a momentary lapse in concentration could still prove costly or hilarious. Sometimes standing on the pegs looking up at the hills around you could be quite mesmerising. It was certainly a wonderful feeling, a reminder of just how great and varied this safari had been. As well as the indigenous wildlife, there can be livestock to look out for. It helps to have someone along who can outflank them and drive them off the road. Once again, we found ourselves leaving gates just as we found them. Sometimes you see an opportunity to get a different shot, and with the freedom of a motorcycle you just go and get it. In this case, the traction control was set to enduro, aim up the hill and let the bike do the rest. This was the result. One of the great aspects of a safari is taking over a town. This was highlighted during the lunch stop over at Lindman. It was GS Central. It also caused much controversy when safari ride leader Grant Evans announced loudly that it was also home to the best burger in South Australia. I mean, what was he thinking?
Craig, what did you elect it for?
I had a burger.
Oh yeah, now I heard it's highly rated. Your thoughts?
I was actually impressed. I went the raw onion option though, so don't stand too close.
Have you had the burger? Because everyone's talking up the burger.
The queue was so long, I couldn't even get in, so I had to go to the pub.
That's it.
So,
you had the burger and you don't rate it.
Didn't rate that at all. I can't believe Grant talked it up.
Run us through a few things you didn't rate.
Just the whole thing, really. Didn't rate the bun. The patty was okay, but the rest of it just really let it down, really.
Best burger I've had all day.
You've taken the brave / silly option of not having the burger but gone with the cheese sandwich. How's that right? Was it a
no, I had the burger.
Oh, and you're going extra?
Yeah, I'm going extra.
Run us through what went on.
That's it. I ordered a hamburger with no cheese.
Yeah.
She said, no, we don't do that. And so I got my hamburger with cheese on it and a cheese sandwich, and I couldn't pay with FPOS, even though there's an FPOS machine at the front.
For display purposes only.
For display purposes only, yeah. And she said, we don't do that. Yeah.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
What a
yeah,
in
Blendon.
Got to get in nice and early.
You going? What are you got? Any plans this afternoon, or
I wouldn't mind trying to get a helicopter flight with a couple of the boys.
All right,
if we can get in nice and early, that would be something that has to be done around here, I think. We'll see you at camp.
Just enough time in the day to stop to take in or take a picture of the more scenic parts of this day's ride. But with almost every corner revealing a new wonder, it was hard to decide what was truly worth stopping for.
Like even up through the rolling hills.
Road is the iconic route through the popular scenic sites in the ranges. At any time of the year it can get quite busy with tourists and the flowing creeks creating some slick sections that can catch you out. Being a popular route means bumping into other groups, in this case a school group on their way through the area on mountain bikes. And for Miles it was another chance to show that he's handy on two wheels of any description.
Bunnyroo Gorge!
Everyone cheered the lads in the luggage truck for making it through, but the truth was that it was untroubled by just about any of the terrain.
So we need a group shot, right? Yeah.
Our first stretch of asphalt for days was not an unwelcome sight as we rode into what would be the final camp of the 2016 edition of the BMW GS Safari Enduro at Rawnsley Park Station. So we're trying to organise the shoot here, Miles. It's actually like herding ducks.
Cats, I think.
Cats on a good day. Cats with dogs.
And ducks.
Alright. Let's see if we pull it off.
I wonder how much...
Come on, we got to get in the shot, bro.
Oh, okay.
Alright. We ready?
And I'm going to do a few...
The tyre team in Sofia may have been late to the photo, but we're glad they were in the shot. And here it is, the class of 2016.
We're adults, never forget that. We're adults. We have lives, jobs and responsibilities. We are adults.
No, we're not. No, we are not.
It was a perfect winter's sunset, and for some, just sitting outside with a drink and some mates was ideal. For others, the much discussed helicopter scenic ride was being ticked off their bucket list.
You won't miss it. It is a really big woolshed, and we make a hard right, and then we head south. So if you're looking at your map,
for amazing safari. I think everybody here is incredible, yeah?
It's been a fantastic week. I did the training before we came on Enduro.
Now, how did that go for you? How's it panned out?
Really well. I think I would have been in real trouble if I hadn't done that before.
I think every day's a highlight. It's you're out in the outback, you don't know what to experience or expect. The road changes all the time. Amazing scenery. Yesterday, particularly coming through the Flinders Ranges Gorge, was just spectacular.
You're one of the first out of the gate off on the last day. Is it because you just want this to be over with?
Yeah. Yes. Scenery wise and some of the riding was yesterday. Coming up through the Flinders Gorges here at just before the station was fantastic.
Are you one of the first out? Why is that?
Because there'll be 90 other people to help me pick my bike up.
Very well played.
It's the final day, and the early risers not only woke to frost, they also got to see an amazing sunrise. Today, the mission is to make it to Broken Hill via 2 million acre stations that kindly let us ride through their rather sizable backyards. Despite the riding knowledge gained and the skills improvement we all felt today, this, the final day, was not a day to take your eye off the prize, finishing in Broken Hill.
Busted up.
I went through the gate there, and there was about 6 of us, and we were heading along, and I was the last one off, and I was doing about 80 to 90 k's an hour, and then just hit the little rut in the centre of the road, and the bike just flipped out from under me, and I fell on my side, and I slid, I don't know for how long, but I've got to say, I have not got a scratch on me because of this gear, and just winded myself, and that was it. So, broke a few bits on the bike, and that was it.
And while that crash went about as well as one could hope, there was another crash that had taken down Craig, one of our ride leaders.
Okay, so we just left Rawnsley Park about 35 k's ago. Got a phone call that the lead riders had had an issue and tagged a skippy just over here, and unfortunately it's brought down Craig. First riders in the morning are the ones that really clear the track for everyone else. There's a lot of wildlife around here, and if you're up as one of the first riders, you get to experience it all, and you're really on your guard. The riders mid-pack pretty much sheltered from that because the animals push back pretty quickly. But for these guys, they get up in the dark, head off early, take it very easy. Light was coming up, probably a few shadows, and there was a big guy under one of the trees there who just sprung up and ran out on the road. And unfortunately, even though it's the last day, Craig looks like he's probably busted a collarbone, a couple of ribs maybe.
We're going this way. Yeah.
We're going that way now?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you're on the ball, because I missed that turn off back there. My GPS is arguing with me and itself, but you know.
This is so beautiful country, so beautiful experience.
The rarely used and very sandy station tracks were soon chopped up and quite challenging. No, this wasn't the worst crash of the event, just a GoPro mount deciding to end its working life.
I wonder if you have a story to tell.
For seasoned GS Safari Enduro participants, seeing people on the side of the track holding their phones could mean only one thing: a photo op, with your crash being the centrepiece. Time to stand up, read the surface and boss your way through. Or you could succumb to the sand and provide us all with entertainment. And for many of us, as we rode through the sand, the words in our head repeating over and over again: I will do more off-road training, I will do more off-road training. Sometimes you have to take the little victories, even when luck plays a role. When sand riding, most riders stand up. This rider has somehow mastered the art of sit-down sand riding. You meet some amazing people in the bush. The family at Calabiti Station have welcomed the BMW GS Safari Enduro before. This time they put on a fuel top-up as well as an excellent afternoon tea stop to get us through the final stretch. All the funds were donated to the Royal Flying Doctor Service. It would have been easy to have an all-too-close encounter with these emus, as the Stratocumulus undulata, yes, I looked it up, clouds in the sky were absolutely mesmerising. Another flat to fix, and then it's up the barrier highway to Broken Hill and the checkered flag.
Hey, Leif, what's going on here?
Oh, I've got to split the tyre and we found
On a brand new tyre?
brand new tyre. We're off the dirt, on the bitumen.
There's a bit of bitching going on now, man.
I'll bet the tyre truck drives past now.
Yeah.
Arrival at the motel in Broken Hill was as satisfying as it was disappointing to be at the end of this epic event. But it would not be a GS Safari Enduro without a cool drink and some animated chatter to wrap things up. Awards and thanks were given out and everyone mentally cleared their calendar for the next GS Safari Enduro.
Where's Josh? Josh, awesome job, mate. They put in a huge effort.
For some, the GS Enduro Safari is an annual event. Some are on their first, but all participants had a ball and enjoyed sharing the sheer joy of two-wheeled adventure travel with old and new friends alike.